Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It feels, I'm not going to lie, it feels weird standing here right now because I know it's only been a week, right? It's been a week and it's a normal week, so it shouldn't seem weird, but I'm different today. I'm different today than I was a week ago in a pretty big way. And I don't know that I can explain it, but I think it's going to show. I spent this whole last week at the Anton annual retreat called Boundless. Anton is the affiliated New Thought Network, and we were at Unity Village in Missouri, which is seriously incredible. It is a remarkable place. And it was absolutely exhausting, but also incredibly transformative on so many different levels. And we just got home last night, so a lot of it is still kind of a blur, and it's just starting to sink in because the sessions were from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every single day. And I was pretty crispy by the end of it. Like I have a book over there full of notes, right? I took notes for all of these different sessions with incredible speakers, and I can't remember which speaker said which thing. And the things are all very, very important, so you would think I would keep track of that. I have no idea. But see, the thing is, everybody there was amazing. Everybody that I met knew exactly who they are. And that's huge. And I could go on and on and on about that, but that is not why we're here today, is it? We're not here to hear about my experience in Missouri. You may hear some more. But we're here to learn about the stuff that changes lives, right? That's why we come together. And you may remember that last week I said that after all the rough stuff we went through when we looked at forgiveness, I'm squinting, those are really bright lights. So the rough stuff we went through when we were looking at forgiveness, I decided to take a quick break before we move into anything bigger. So this is just going to be a 4-week break from the heavy stuff. Because you remember, we were supposed to go from forgiveness into overcoming fear. And that's a big one too. So we need a minute. So I decided to lighten things up for a few weeks. We're going to do a really quick ascension from comfort all the way up into bliss. Okay, so this week, we're looking at whether or not we're comfy. Okay, and you're going to get to hear about how for a little while during that conference, I was not particularly comfy. Now, next week, the incredible Reverend Dr. Jerry Troyer will be with us. I got to spend the week with him too, and he's a blast. If you didn't get a chance to speak to him the last time he was here, take the time next week to just hang out with him for a minute. He's just the sweetest man. He's going to be here to talk about happiness, right? And that's kind of his wheelhouse. So, I mean, he already had a workshop prepared. So you can see, I mean, that's his thing. Like, he was ready to go. But doesn't that sound a whole lot better than looking at fear? Because we're going to go from happiness into joy, and joy is my bag, right? That's my thing. I want to express joy in every conceivable way, which is why we do very silly things very frequently here. And then we're moving into bliss. And bliss, that's all yours. That's your talk because it's your bliss. You need to figure out what that looks like. So as we're moving through these next 3 weeks going into bliss, start those wheels going. What is your bliss? Let's discover it in the 4th week. I know that the fear thing is going to feel wonderful once we move past it, right? Right? Once we're not afraid anymore, it's going to feel really good. But we have to get through the not feeling good part to get there. And so that's why I came up with this whole plan of ascension, and I ascension into bliss. And I thought I had it all figured out, right? I thought I knew. Okay, that has been the progression since I came up with the idea. We're going to do comfortable, happy, joyful bliss, right? Cool plan. It's in my head. It's solid. I thought I had this whole series of talks in the bag, And I thought I knew exactly where I was going to start and how I was going to follow through and where we'd end. And then predictably, I didn't. I didn't. Because whenever I think I've got a plan all figured out, I'm quickly reminded that it isn't my plan. It never was, and it never will be. And I actually like that. I just forget sometimes, you know? We get used to being humans and planning the things. It's not my plan. So I'm going to ask you, are you comfy? Are you comfy about life? I mean, are you comfortable with where your life is? Are you comfortable with your friends and your family? And most of all, are you comfy with yourself? Because that's really the big question, right? Am I okay with me? And that reminds me of a joke I heard this week by the inimitable Reverend Dr. Michelle Whittington, who I got to spend a whole lot of time with this last week, and she's incredible. That is her photo over there with me and Jerry. And she told this joke at the beginning of one of her keynote speeches. She said, 2 ladies from high school met after many, many years. One starts to go on and on about her life and all of the things that have happened through the decades, but then suddenly seems to realize that she's been hogging the spotlight. And so she says, oh, I'm so sorry. Enough about me. Tell me, what do you think about me? That lady certainly seems strong in the self-love department, right? But jokes aside, walking into that conference, I was, as usual, really comfortable with being me, exactly as I am. Because I accepted long ago that the drum my life beats to is largely out of time with those of others, and I'm okay with that. I have long accepted that my way of thinking and my way of doing things and my way of interpreting things, especially things of a spiritual nature, can be very different from the norm. And I've grown to love that about myself. So I was very, very surprised to find myself feeling kind of uncomfortable at the conference. A little bit at first, but then more and more, until I had to take several steps back and figure out what I was allowing myself to bother me about. Because, okay, if you think that was a strange sentence, wait for it, because it's going to get probably a little more confusing before it gets clearer, but eventually I think we'll get there. So there I am. I'm in this room full of beautiful people, only 2 of whom I've ever met, and that was Dr. James Mellon and Reverend Dr. Jerry Troyer, but so many whom I'd heard of. So I was admittedly a little dumbstruck just in meeting some of the authors and speakers that I've admired through the years, but in a good way. I wasn't swooning or anything, but I was excited and maybe a little intimidated, but again, in a good way. They'd given me this little blue ribbon to stick on the bottom of my name badge so that people would know that I was new to the conference. And it did the trick because I was greeted eagerly by so many people with open arms. And I met so many people so quickly that I was kind of reeling at first. It was really wonderful. But one little thing started bothering me. And it got bigger and bigger still. And then it got so big that I started feeling kind of apprehensive about talking to people. It was threatening to get in the way of my growth and my experience at the conference. And that's when I had to take that step back and figure things out. And what was that thing? Hey, it may seem silly, okay? But it was that every time I met somebody, one of their very first questions was, where did you go to school? Not what kind of church do you come from? Not, so are you religious science or unity, divine science? It wasn't, why did you decide to become a minister? It was, where did you go to school? Over and over. I mean, it was almost obsessive. I swear, in the first 2 days alone, I must have heard that question 20 different times from different people. And I kept thinking, like, what? How does that matter in the grand scheme of things? Shouldn't what I teach be of more concern than where I got the piece of paper and the legal right to do ceremonies? And I always gave an honest answer. And it was almost always met with what appeared to my self-critical eye to be attitudes of judgment or mild dismissal. And in a normal setting, I doubt it would have bothered me much. But this was a room full of my peers. And many of them appeared to think that I wasn't qualified to be amongst them. At least that's what my ego told me. I kept hearing, you should get an endorsement from Emerson Institute. And it bugged me. It really bugged me. For those of you who don't know, I was born and raised in New Thought. My parents were married at Founders Church, which is where Ernest Holmes started the Institute of Religious Science. New Thought, religious science, all of that was in my life before I was in my life. Okay? I believe that when I got here, when I was little, this was still a church of religious science, right? And then sometime in the 80s, it became an independent New Thought church under the direction of the minister I grew up with, which is Margaret Stevens. She was the second at the helm after our founder. Ernest Holmes and Bill Hornaday and so many other New Thought visionaries were like family members in my child's mind. I can't remember a time in my life when their names and their words of wisdom were not somewhere near my listening ears. The radio show This Thing Called Life was a constant in my household. A show which, by the way, is still going strong on the internet. It is still going. You can tune in. It's very cool. But I suggest looking up some of the old episodes. You can find them archived. They're super cool. And because my parents are the people that they are, I also got a whole lot of Buddhist and Native American and Judeo-Christian and myriad other faith traditions all sprinkled into my upbringing. And I vividly recall a time when a neighborhood friend, I remember she came home and she was wearing all white. And I was like, oh, that's a nice outfit. Where'd you go? And she said, I got baptized. And I had no idea what she was talking about. And so I went home and I asked my mom if I'd been baptized. And she said, no, your father and I want you to decide what you believe in. You can choose whether or not you want to be baptized. And that was powerful for me. I really remember that moment. I don't think I was old enough to understand how important that was, but I carried it with me until I did. So when I finally decided to listen to that inner voice, which had been calling me for so many years that I ignored, and go to ministerial school, I chose to go learn something I did not understand. I went to a rather strict, traditional Christian seminary. And I will confess, despite doing all of the work necessary for my degree, there is still a great deal that I don't understand about why people believe in some of the limiting, fear-filled beliefs that they do. But I understand the language. I understand the core teachings and beliefs. I understand where they come from. And that's what I aimed to do. My goal was to be able to speak the language of as many different faith traditions as possible so that I could communicate the kinds of empowering teachings that we offer here in ways that they would hear and understand without putting up walls to block a perceived attack or threat on their beliefs, because people hold those dear. I don't want to change your beliefs. I want to help people become empowered, to change the way that they're experiencing life, to teach people that they are the author of their own lives, that they are indeed made by God, but also of God, that they were born amazing, have always been amazing, and could never be anything less than amazing, no matter how hard they tried. But most importantly, I wanted to be able to do that in that way that didn't make them feel like I was trying to pop the bubble of limitation that they had placed around the structure of their belief. I wanted them to be able to hear the truth of my words in a way which empowered their minds to harmoniously integrate it within the framework of their faith tradition. Because to me, the more people who are aware of who they really are, perfect expressions of divinity, the better the world will be. The labels that they use to describe their faith tradition, the books that they read, the teachers that they follow, that doesn't matter. It's what they do to demonstrate that faith that does. But when I gave a very short version of that answer to many of the people in that room this week, it seemed like I was almost dismissed, albeit in a polite way. But it irked my ego. It really did. It irked my ego something fierce after a couple days of it. And I had to tell that big ego to sit back down in the corner where I sent it a few months ago and shut its ever-flapping pie hole so I could think clearly. Because it wasn't them who made me feel badly. It was me. If I was as confident as I thought I was, their opinions would not have mattered. So where was that confidence? I had to be with that question, and I walked the labyrinth many, many times with that question in mind. For those who don't know, Unity Village has the largest labyrinth in the Western Hemisphere, and it's incredible. And whenever I stepped foot upon the little circle at the entry, I always found myself hearing Ernest Holmes' voice in my head reminding me to be open at the top. And a great many insights came to me during my walks on that labyrinth. Toward the end of our trip, I found myself skipping meals so I could go and walk while it was quiet and still, while everyone else was eating, because I needed to walk and listen, because the truth comes not in the thinking, but in the listening. And before I tell you what came out of my walks, I want you to consider something that I said earlier, because it wasn't them who made me feel badly, it was me. On the second day of that conference, author and inspirational speaker Reverend Dr. David Alexander gave a talk challenging us to answer the questions, who are you and why are you here? And he said something during his talk which really, really resonated with me. And it's this thing which I believe gave me the cue to examine my feelings in a different way. He said, if what I've said offends or agitates you, you must examine the belief which lies behind the agitation. If what I've said offends or agitates you, you must examine the belief which lies behind the agitation. So what did I believe? Did I believe that somehow not having the particular education of my peers on paper make me less effective as a minister? I had to look hard at that. What about you? What are the things you tell yourself through the opinions and judgments of other people? What are the you're not enoughs, you'll never be's? What are those that haunt you? Which opinions of others have you allowed to be a part of your self-definition? Are you smart enough? Good-looking enough? Are you successful enough? Or the big question behind all the other questions, are you worthy? The truth is, yes. You are. You are worthy of everything wonderful you could ever dream of. You are the light of the world. You shine so brightly that you blind the eyes of the ignorant and remind them of their own divinity. And perhaps that has frightened some of them, made them speak and act in ways that made you want to dim your shine. But it didn't make you any less radiant. It just made you try to hide it. I want to share something with you from a little old booklet I found by Ernest Holmes. But first, since I know we have folks visiting us from other faith backgrounds, I want to take you back through the context of things from a Christian biblical standpoint, okay? So let's go back to 1 John 1, verses 1 through 4. In the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Everything came to be by his hand, and without him, not even one thing that was created came to be. The life was in him, and the life is the light of men. In the beginning was God, right? The Word was with God, and the Word was God. There was nothing else, right? That's what that says. There was just God, not God and some other stuff laying around which served as building materials and which God used to make us and everything around us. So what were we made of? Right, we were made by God, of God. We are little pieces of God, lovingly shaped into these beautiful little light bringers we call humans. So this is from that little booklet, and it's called Your Invisible Power. It was printed in 1940. I actually have it in my bag. I have all sorts of really cool little things like this left over from when the ministerial school was here. So technically, maybe I do have their education. I'm just saying. But this cool little book, this is what it says on page 22. You have a friend within you who is closer than your shadow. This friend anticipates your every desire, knows your every need, and governs your every act. This friend is God within your own soul, the animating presence projecting your personality, which is a unique individualization of the living spirit. That friend within you is continuously looking after your well-being. He always wishes you to be happy, to be well, to be radiant. Being the very fountain of your life, this friend is a luminous presence, ever more emerging from pure spirit, ever more expanding your consciousness. Possibly it will be difficult for you to believe that there is such a friend, but he is there, at the very center of your being, directing your thought and causing you to triumph over every defeat, for he is an unconquerable hero. He who keeps silent watch within you lifts your consciousness to the realization that you are forever protected, forever safe, forever perfect. Wasn't Ernest something? He had quite a way with words. One speaker at the conference put it this way: you are here so God can have a wonderful time as you. I really dug that. It made sense. But the moral of the story is this: we are all enough. We always have been. I learned a lot in my walks upon the labyrinth at Unity Village. I listened and I heard that I am perfectly poised and placed in this work by divine hands. And I heard that new thought might benefit from some new ways of thinking about how to embody new thought. And that maybe some of those new ways might look just like me, exactly as I am. You too are poised and placed here by divine hands. You are exactly as the universe, that is, God, intended you to be. And God made you as the perfect expression of love that you are. And it's time for you to take that in and own it as your truth, because it is. I assure you, it really is your truth. Step forward and let God have a wonderful time as you. This beautiful life that we've been given is a gift. And it is too short for us to choose anything less than a wonderfully comfortable experience for ourselves. Get comfy and mean it. I met a really amazing woman at the conference whose contribution to the second Anton book ever published, Works of the Heart, really spoke to my heart. And I'm hopeful that it will speak to yours so that you can finally join me in the comfort of usness, because oneness is plural. This is from the incomparably effervescent Reverend Jeannie Sovereigns of Begin Within Ministries, and you should definitely go online and check out her podcast, Be Beautiful, with capital U, Be beautiful, being unapologetically yourself. I am so grateful to have met and spent time with her. I actually wore this in her honor because she spent most of the conference wearing brightly covered gowns like this. And I texted her last night and I was like, hey, I'm going to quote what you wrote in the book tomorrow, and maybe I'll wear a dress for you. And she's probably, hi Jeannie, she may be watching. She is in Philadelphia, so her time zone's a little different. But hey girl, the coolest thing about her is she is so positive and joy-filled that the gowns were about the least colorful thing about her. This is what she wrote, and please hear it as though it was written specifically for you, because it was. It's called A Love Letter from Beyond. Dearest child of my heart, as your divine parent, I am overwhelmed with joy and love as I behold the radiance that emanates from your being. Your every adventure brings me immeasurable pleasure, and I'm honored to be an ever-present companion on your sacred journey. Can you open your heart even wider for what is yet to occur? It's about to be renewed, refreshed, and reimagined as your life and spirit continue to rise. Life's challenges, including setbacks and illnesses, are not obstacles. They are parts of the journey. They may test your limits, but they will also reveal hidden strengths and foster appreciation for life's preciousness and a sense of compassion for others. You, my dear, are a unique and precious creation, a goddess with depth and complexity that surpasses your current understanding. This is a pivotal moment in your path, a time of great transformation and growth. Embrace this moment with open arms and an open heart. The time is now, right this moment. Do it. Stop questioning and doubting yourself. Do you think I was bored and that's why I created you? No, I'm empowering you to live a full and fruitful life. You are my sweet, beautiful creation. I have created you to be more than you can see right now. You, my dear, have a divine mission. Your purpose is to bring joy, laughter, and sweetness into the world. Through your eyes, I see the beauty and the wonder of the universe reflected as me. Trust in your decisions as a teacher, a way shower, and a minister. Know that all is well and in perfect order, even when doubt or uncertainty may arise. Take a deep breath, center yourself, and feel the love that beats within your heart. It is a steady beacon of light, reminding you that you are unconditionally loved and your journey is blessed. Oh, sweet divine child, the preciousness of it all, the sheer pleasure of you. Your mission has always been for me to have a good time. I am so enamored with you and all you do. With every step you take, remember that you are never alone. I am always here, right beside you, cheering and supporting you in all your endeavors. Trust in the path that unfolds before you and know that you are divinely guided, guarded, and protected. I assure you, it is all good. You are love and light. If you ever forget, just read this letter again and know that you are loved. And she signed it, Kisses and Boundless Love, God, aka Big Daddy. Thank you.